right. I'm going to go ahead and get started. Hi, everyone. Happy Saturday. My name is Victoria Angulo. I am the head of growth and university relations here at Codepath. I'm also an FIU alumni. So go Panthers. Excited to be here today and talk to all of you and just be able to introduce my incredible CEO and founder of codepath.org, Michael Ellison, who's going to be talking today about how to use your unfair advantage to break into tech. So I'm going to pass over the mic to Michael and let you take it from here.
Thanks, Victoria. So really excited to be here and chat with you all. This is going to be an interactive session. I encourage you to ask any questions that could be helpful to you. And first, I want to start off with getting a pulse for, yes, Codepath, that's right. Getting a pulse for, why are you all a part of this hackathon today? Is it to, you love building things, you want to learn, you want to get a job, you want to start a company? So just add in the chat some thoughts of why you're here and joining us. Learning network, a lot of learning, it looks like. Test my skills, which is great. To dominate, that's the right attitude. That's definitely the right attitude. That'll be part of the talk too. Prove my resume, get a job. Create something and opportunities. Wonderful. And also curious about if there's anything that you really want to get out of this session, I'm happy to answer that as well. So feel free to add to the chat, and then Victoria is going to make sure she interrupts me if there's something that looks like it's bubbling up. So today we're going to cover two main areas. One, I want to talk with you about different success hacks, things that you can do from my own experience that could help you to stand out, especially if you're coming from a background similar to mine where you didn't have a lot of connections, network, came from a low-income background. And so that's, I think, the most important piece today. And then I also want to share a little bit about the background of Codepath and why I'm so excited to be part of that organization. And then also just to be transparent, to be point blank, like what would be in it for you, or what's interesting about Codepath or different than different other organizations you might want to be a part of. So my background, I think, is somewhat interesting. I have been a tech entrepreneur for the past 16 years, founded 6 different organizations and 3 nonprofits, 3 tech startups. I was one of the earlier Black founders in Y Combinator back in 2011, and I founded a company now valued at $1.5 billion. And the funny thing about this is I didn't plan any of this. When I think back on my life and my career, it felt more like I was surviving, and I was just trying to do one step and then find the next step and then just keep going. And then there are various points in time that, looking back, ended up becoming inflection points. And to give you an idea of, I guess, double clicking on the background from when I was younger, I grew up in rural Maine, single mother household. Points in time we were homeless growing up. I didn't have a lot of confidence in school. So middle school, high school, I wasn't one of those kids that was an amazing public speaker. I wasn't one of those kids that was an amazing networker. I was just trying to get by. I also, when I started college, I ended up dropping out of computer science. There's a lot of aspects of my journey which I wasn't necessarily going to be on a path to have high success. And I had to figure out how I could make the most out of my situation. 2 examples that stand out from my childhood. One is when I realized that my life might be a little bit hard. When I was 5 years old, my dad ended up going to jail. And that was a trigger and an inflection from being relatively comfortable to living in a car for over a year, moving 12 times before I was 12 years old because we got constantly evicted, and having this huge weight on my shoulder where I just never felt like I was good enough for anything. That was the first kind of inflection point, and that was very painful for me. When I got into high school, I made a decision that I wanted to stop feeling so afraid of the world and so afraid of different social interactions, of standing out. And part of the reason I think I was so timid is because my mom is the type of person where if she's going through a McDonald's drive-through, she will literally shake. She will get so much anxiety that she cannot handle ordering, say, a Big Mac or what have you. I think that kind of was handed down to me as well. So when I was a freshman in high school, I kind of made the decision, I'm going to seek out experiences that are going to make me uncomfortable, that challenge, that scare me, and I'm just going to see what happens, even though I was scared to death. Some of the, in addition to that mindset, which I attribute, I mean, there's lots of ups and downs with, you have to work while in school. You don't know anyone to network to get jobs. I consider the biggest challenge that I've ever had to overcome is just managing my own psychology, managing my fear, my motivation, my focus, feelings where I didn't have control and I desperately wanted control. And so let me give you a couple of examples from the first company I ever started. So when I first got into college, I felt like I had already become successful. I didn't think I was necessarily going to make it through high school, but I did get into college and I thought, like, this is the good life. I got food in the cafeteria, I got a dorm. So that's when the first company that I started when I was 19, which was a nonprofit. It was, to be honest, it was kind of terrible because I didn't know what I was doing, and nobody would listen to us or believe us or thought that we were worthy of funding. And we just made so many mistakes. So one example is my title was executive vice president. And then we would talk to somebody that was at a company. They're like, you're the executive of what? I'm like, I'm the executive vice president. And they're like, do you understand how companies work? To be a vice president, there probably needs to be, people above you and below you. You have two people in your company. And so it was constantly embarrassing where we would just do stuff and then people would be like, you're clueless, you're idiots, you have no idea what's happening. And we were motivated by wanting to make a difference, but then I also was motivated by wanting to do something to stand out. I felt like the odds were stacked against me, so what can I do in order to make people notice me? It was even more painful if you can imagine starting a nonprofit and then you need to get money from rich people and you don't know what rich people are like. So you're trying to do a fundraising event and you're like, wait, what do rich people like to do in their free time? What do rich people like to eat? What type of entertainment? Like, it was so weird and so surreal. And it was also pretty traumatizing at various points in time because it was just failure after failure after failure. And I think that a desire to keep going and just to continue to try new things and to be really, really aggressive. So if you're coming from a low income background, the odds are stacked against you. You have to do everything you possibly can in order to create that unfair advantage. I'll give you an example of one thing that we did, which was really pivotal in within the first year and a half of that nonprofit. So we were trying to figure out how to raise money, and we didn't know how. So we Googled, who has a lot of money, and we saw Goldman Sachs has a lot of money. And so we thought, okay, great, we'll call Goldman Sachs, they'll give us money because we're a great nonprofit. So ended up like dialing their call in line, and I was like pressing the buttons. They had one of those dial-ins where you would be able to just enter a number and then it would connect you to a random person. So just dialed random person. And then I had this call script. I'm like, hello, my name is Michael Ellison. I'm calling from, and then this person who was a VP that we randomly dialed thought we were talking about some conference that they were doing in New York. He's like, oh, what are you talking about? Are you part of the conference that we're doing with Sullivan & Cromwell, our law firm? And I'm like, yeah, I'm part of that conference. And so then we were able to be directed. We got introed from like a VP down to someone who was organizing the event, who thought we had missed tickets for some exclusive event in New York. And so then we ended up getting the tickets. We were in Boston at the time, so I had to figure out how to get to New York. Took a $10 Chinatown bus from, and I think they still have them from Boston to New York. I had to borrow a suit. I'd never worn a suit before. Had to borrow a suit from my roommate, and this was later in the week. Tuesday we end up getting the tickets. Friday we're in New York, and then we are the only two young people in this event where the average age is like 50 to 60-year-olds, and we just go around and we have like our pitch sheet and we start trying to talk to people. And it was pretty incredible, not because we did a good job, but just because we stood out so much. We were completely different than anyone else there. We were like 30 years younger than all the other people in the room. And that made people want to talk to us. And that was a really interesting learning for me, because there's so many ways that you can just be in a room, but you can be different, and that will make you stand out. And we still made tons of mistakes. I was calling myself executive vice president of what I don't know. We would continue to fail, but it's by putting ourselves in that situation, it created this opportunity that then we were talking to Goldman Sachs, and now we're talking to all these major law firms. And it even extended to some interesting lessons beyond that. So the follow-up conversation from Goldman Sachs, we pitched the head of the Goldman Sachs Foundation. They invite us to a follow-up. In the follow-up meeting, they just said, you're going to fail and you should give up and you're idiots. There's no way you're going to succeed. So we, of course, felt terrible about that. We didn't have any money. We were trying to raise money. And but something interesting happened. In the meeting was a partner for this major law firm, Sullivan & Cromwell, and the partner was very senior. And all of the people not in the meeting who were more junior thought that this partner liked us. So over the course of the next 6 months, they kept trying to curry favor with us in order to curry favor with their boss for a promotion, because they weren't in the meeting where he said, you're just going to fail, so give up. And we kind of leveraged that to our advantage. We didn't have very much we could do, but we did have one thing that they didn't have. We had time. And so I would volunteer to join some meeting, and I'd take notes, and I would try to absorb as much as possible. I'd be camping out in this law firm to just, as much as possible, connect and build relationships. And even though they said we would fail after this event, a year later we were presenters and we had funders, and it was pretty phenomenal. We had that senior partner who said we would fail joined our board. So part of the learnings here, it's you have to be creative, you have to be persistent, and the odds are going to be stacked against you, but you need to find the way that you can be the one that stands out in the sea of all these people who are working hard. And when I I'm still in school, of course, and so now I'm in school, but then I have this nonprofit, and then now I know all these corporate people who want to do stuff, and then suddenly it's like the opportunities start to open up more and more and more. So a lot that you can glean from that, and kind of what I encourage people to do is finding something that you can do that is going to make it so they're not comparing you to, say, 1,000 or 1,000,000. How can you be the only person in the room that they can compare you to just yourself? How can you stand out in that way? Also wanted to share, okay, so another piece here. So say you were like, hey, Mike, I want to get an internship. Hey, Mike, I want to raise money. Hey, I want to convince people to co-found a startup with me. Then there's all of those situations. There's one thing that you need to get past, and that is the trust gap. The difference of getting past this trust gap and not is the difference between you raising, say, $100 and you raising 5 million. It's literally that simple. Or it's the difference between, say, a previous co-founder of Facebook joining your company and working with you, or say, your friend down the hall that can barely write a line of code is the best co-founder that you can find. It's so surprising that the way the world works, like you just really need to figure out how you're able to overcome this trust. And let me give you an example with my second startup. So this wasn't a nonprofit, it was a tech startup. And I'm still in college. Took me a while to be able to finish school because I was trying to build a company while I was in school. And then I didn't know what I could do. I felt somewhat defeated from the nonprofit running for 5 years. The 2008 financial crisis wiped us out as we had to break a lot of promises to our students and our board members. Very painful. When I was trying to figure out what to do next, I ended up going back to school. And while I was in school, I wanted to find a co-founder. And I thought, let me find, how do I have an unfair advantage with doing a startup? And I'm like, well, if I find the most successful person I can think of where raising money for them is easy and they already have all the connections so that then we have, a year of a runway plus, then that would be the best situation. So I found this person on Twitter who he started MTV's pro social programming, like social good programming, won 4 Emmy Awards, head of talent for the Obama campaign. He was head of corporate social responsibility for MTV. I was really glued to and excited about the intersection of changing the way big companies worked, but then also how does that make the world a better place? So I found him on Twitter and reached out to him and was trying to build a relationship via Twitter. He eventually responded to me and he said he was traveling in my area and he's like, yeah, I'll meet with you. And I'm successful in getting this lunch with him. And at the lunch, he's like, you're a nice kid. You don't really know what you're doing. You say you want to be my co-founder in something. Just give up. It's not going to happen. I don't need you. You don't have any skills. Cute what you did with that nonprofit, but you can't help me. So this was another, major rejection. It was so hard to get the meeting with him. I'm in Boston. He's in New York. What happens next is I decide to just not give up. I decide I want to go all in, that this is the path. So I start to work for him without his permission for over a month and a half. I just start doing stuff that I think will be valuable to him. Initially, he's like, what are you doing? You're annoying. Stop emailing me. Stop trying to do things. I don't need you. I don't need your help. So I just kept doing stuff. And again, I had one thing that he didn't have. I had time. I could do research for him and I would do research. I'm like, maybe he needs to know about this thing. And I try to do an intro, even though his network is insane. And I was trying to leverage the very few things that I could leverage in order to try to be impactful. There was also an opportunity that arose where he's like, okay, fine, you can take notes in this meeting. I'm not really a tech person, but you can take some notes. And he was, even though he's so successful, he was not technical and didn't think of himself as technical. And in this meeting, I was helping to translate what he wanted in the product to actually what the technical roadmap should be. And because he didn't want to do it, he's like, I guess you can do a little bit. I ended up becoming so valuable to him that I was his de facto head of product, CTO. He ended up making me a co-founder in the company within about 2 to 3 month time period. And all of this incredible co-founder, and then and a startup which we didn't have to raise money. Companies were paying us tens of thousands of dollars to build a product that we had not built yet. All of that because I just decided I wasn't going to give up. I was going to go after this individual, and I just had this mindset of, how do I have this unfair advantage? How can I make it as easy as possible for me to get lucky and for me to be successful in doing this? So this is another example of, don't copy and paste exactly. I mean, you could try to work for people for free. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But I'd say that the idea is the creativity of, you always have something that you can do. And sometimes you can find the greatest impact in your career, the greatest inflection point, by thinking about things differently. A lot of people, maybe they have to put in 1,000 hours to get to that same point. But what if you can leapfrog by thinking about things completely differently in a way that is to your advantage and based on your skills and your background? So, okay, let's see. Should I do a couple of questions? Or should next is Codepath.
Does anyone have any questions that they want to drop in the chat that Michael can answer before he dives into a little bit more about Codepath?
All right, let's go into Codepath. And then we can come back to the questions. I'll try to go quickly with Codepath. So Codepath is the current organization. We're a nonprofit. And we believe in super high quality, free coding education. We think that the best education in the world should be free. It should put you on a path that helps you to become a proficient software engineer. And we want the courses to have no difference between what you would learn inside of the major technology companies. And when I say free, I'm not like, we don't charge you before, we don't charge you during, we don't charge you after. We just believe that that is the way that that education should work ideally. The history of Codepath is really, really interesting because we've been a nonprofit for 3 years. We've been scaling across colleges and university campuses for the past 5 years. But before that, me and the co-founders started a company that has been the top technical training organization in Silicon Valley. So we created Airbnb's first ever engineer onboarding program. They hired Codepath to do that. We redesigned Facebook's global engineer onboarding program. We currently run internship programs for Facebook. So if you apply to Facebook University, you'll be taught by Codepath people. Some other super cool stuff. Steve Huffman, the current CEO of Reddit, he was a student in a Codepath course. He learned iOS from one of my co-founders. Cynthia Maxwell, she is a current iOS teacher right now. So if you were taking one of our remote iOS courses, Cynthia would teach you. Cynthia, she is currently a mobile engineering exec for Netflix. Before that, she was the tech lead for Apple Watch. Before that, she spent 7 years at Apple as part of their core iOS team, reaching all the way back to 2004. So when I say that we're trying to make sure there's no difference between a Codepath course and what's taught in industry, we want to make sure the courses are putting you on a path to not just get your foot in the door, but we want to see the creation of people from low-income, underrepresented backgrounds that end up leading engineering teams. You can start a startup. You can stand out to an incubator like Y Combinator. We want you to have options and opportunities. You know, one thing I should share as well. So we're really big fans of open source. And so we open source our curriculum. The link I just shared in the chat, our Android guides are among the most popular repositories for Android on the internet. So we very much believe in sharing everything for free and making sure that students have access to all the resources. Here's another free career guide. It's available, it's open, but I really mean it when I say that we're very focused on providing as many resources as possible. And then, people always ask, what are you trying to do? Or how are you funded? Or what's the catch? So we generally just want to see more great software engineers and to have as many as possible come from disadvantaged backgrounds. If we're able to succeed at scale, then we're going to be closing income gaps. The world I want to live in 2050 is a world where there's many more people who are technical. We're accelerating the pace of technological change, which makes everything better. And then I want to see more people that look like me to be in positions of power. And okay, one of the last ones. How is Codepath funded? So our major funders are the major technology companies: Facebook, Microsoft, Andreessen Horowitz. Y Combinator is now funding Codepath. They reached out to us. They want to fund us, and their funding pays for them to speak to you every semester. So Y Combinator is paying us so that they can talk to you through Codepath if you become part of the Codepath network. And then there's also Y Combinator office hours that are now available to students. And last thing I'll end on before more questions, if there are any questions. So the funding that we receive from venture capital firms, from major technology startups, they're essentially paying us to improve computer science. And so my call to action for you, if you're interested in joining the Codepath community, test out one of our courses. We are trying very hard to build the courses that will make you fall in love with programming. And I know a lot of the programming courses in CS today, maybe you're not falling in love with them, but programming is incredible. You're at a hackathon to learn, but then it's the most powerful tool that you can have at this point in time for upward mobility, for your career. So test out a course, see how it looks. If you share our vision and you are passionate about also changing CS education so that it is better across every single campus, then we would love for you to explore becoming a tech fellow. And let me share a link there. Tech fellows are leaders across college campuses, and they have kind of we're in regional tiers of leadership. There's extra responsibility and there's extra benefits beyond everything else that we do with CodePath. And we are at FIU, we're launching our first Android course in January. So Android is going to be one of the first ones there. Android's really, I feel like it doesn't get a lot of attention compared to iOS. A lot of people have iPhones versus different Android phones, but Android is the, for example, Facebook. Android is a larger part of their business than iOS and web combined. So there's a really strong future for people that are interested in exploring Android development. Okay, let me pause there. Are there any questions?
Yeah, we have some great questions in the chat, Michael. There's actually a question here from Michael Lewis asking, what was your process with dealing with rejection?
Self-criticism, depression. No. So yeah, that is, I'm a sensitive person. I had confidence issues, major confidence issues growing up. And I think I just tried to think of myself as, how do I manage my psychology in a way that, or think of myself more as almost like a machine in a sense. What inputs can I do before and then after something stressful that's happening, so it's a more controlled outcome. And so over time, I've realized that there are certain things that I like. I meditate every morning. I exercising regularly. I give myself pep talks. The most valuable thing you can possibly do, and it works actually. Write something that's like, "Hey, this is why you're great," and then you're feeling bad, and then read it. Stuff like that you might not think is impactful is impactful. I have a journal where I list 3 things every morning that I'm thankful for. So even if everything is falling apart, you're still reminding yourself that little things matter and are important. And the most important piece, the people that you surround yourself with, you need to think about that quite a bit, because they can be people who are game changers for yourself, your career, and they'll influence your behavior. They'll make it easy for you to adopt a new habit, or they could make it impossible. So I think the people you surround yourself around, I'm very intentional and picky with who those people are.
Answer. Thank you, Michael. We also have another question from Ian Carter, who I know is taking our iOS course over at Florida State. He is asking, do you think your background, where you're from, what you went through, what people considered a hindrance, gave you that persistence to never give up?
Yeah. So I'm very thankful for my background and my perspective, because I feel lucky every single day of my life. And I also can understand, like I'll have like angry reactions when I see programs that only cater to wealthy, already prepared, already privileged students. And the biggest element related to persistence is yes, I want to make a big impact on the world, but I kind of also want to prove people wrong who think that I can't make it, or I can't do something, or I can't accomplish something. And that is honestly a really big motivator, because people will assume that you're not going to be able to make it. But if you're able to turn that negative energy into like, no, I am going to make it. I am going to do this. I'm going to come back, and then you're going to be begging me to partner with me. And so that's, I think it's really important to adopt that perspective.
And I think we're right about at time. So thank you so much, Michael. I hope everyone enjoyed this session. I dropped my email in the chat. You can email outreach@codepath.org so we can talk more about some great scholarship opportunities. Christopher, I'm going to write down your name so we can reach out as soon as the FIU course is launched in January. Happy to chat and really excited to just continue to grow this wonderful community of CS students.